thought I would say. I miss driving 1,000 miles a month. I miss you. And what I learned was, in 32 years of judicatory work or regional type work, I hadn't been in the same place, my house, for an entire month in 33 years. And all of a sudden, all the suitcases were empty at one time. And what I learned is, if all the suitcases are empty, they don't fit in the cupboard, because I never always had all the suitcases unpacked. And so it has been really sad, a loss. And because of those losses, we have opportunities to then feel feelings, and we're finding that many more people are attaching to, we're finding that people have thinner skins and they're a little bit more touchy. But at the same time, this rewiring is freeing, because there are some things we're just letting go of that I bet we'll never do again. And there are some habits that we had that maybe we won't do again. I don't go to the craft store anymore and spend a lot of money, because I don't go to this craft store. And that has helped me to say, you know, I probably have enough yarn, though I know for you knitters, that's probably a silly thing to say. But Neva has already sold me in the fair trade sale about 15 baskets that are all full of yarn. So I venture to guess I have enough. So I'm free from some of those other things. And the last thing on that list is, it's creative. There's times now where we can do new things like this that we might not have tried before. So let's take a minute to figure out how to live resiliently. Let's offer this opportunity for a quiet space to talk about resilience. Resilience is that way in the world where you face a new experience, but you rise to it. You come to it with fullness. And resilience is something that educators talk about. Educators in schools talk about how to help kids be resilient. People in the military now train for resilience as a way to preload experiences of post-traumatic stress. What can help us preload resilience? And so I went to Renee, and I think Renee found this first, a school district that talked about how to help kids become resilient and to stay resilient. And there are 7 things that start with the letter C. And as a Kathy with C, and C correct, I love that they all start with C. But it does make it hard for you to remember them because they all start with C. So here are quickly the 7 ways to be resilient and how they help us right now. One of them is to develop competence and to be sure of what you know how to do. Well, you can do things. You have abilities. You can vote. That's the only time I'm going to say that. But you can. You can vote. You can call people. You can organize. You can speak. You can do many things that help to make an impact on your environment and on things. And one of the things that makes us resilient is that sense that we can have an effect. We can do something. This needs to be true, though, that we can't do everything. And so one of the parts of competence is knowing when to delegate and ask somebody else for help. And that is also a skill of competence. Competence doesn't mean I do it all myself and I know everything. It means what I do know, I know, and what I don't know, I ask for advice. And then on a good day, I take it. A second thing that helps us to be resilient is ability to make a contribution. To be sure of our generosity, to know how to give things to people so that we know beyond ourselves. Every morning in my prayer time, I think of what is one way or more today that I will give something out of myself and out of my resources to someone else. How will I this day give away part of my life, part of my resource? Sometimes it's just being present, but how will we do this? This week I'll take cereal to Murray Hills because I know they're collecting cereal for some project at the school that we help to support with our presence. The reason this is important is when we don't make contributions and we turn in on ourselves, we can become afraid and feel like the world is full of scarcity when indeed the world is abundant. A third way that we can be resilient is to be confident, how to build our sense of confidence in the things we can do and the gifts we have. All of us have gifts. In fact, when I was listening to you as I was working on getting Blanca with us, and I could hear you, and I was listening to you share, I'm knitting this, I'm creating that, we're making hats for these people, we're making a blanket for this. I listened to your confidence that you can do things, you can create things, and that when you use your gifts, be it speaking, creating, showing up, whatever your gifts are, it builds confidence, and the confidence makes you resilient and less afraid. The fourth thing is connection, and you are being connected right now. This is resilience. What you are doing, being in this virtual space, makes you sure that you belong to a community. One of the other prayer practices that I have is that in the morning when I'm drinking my coffee, I will look at our website for the region and I'll watch the slideshow on the homepage. And I watch all of you go by. There's like 200 and something pictures there of the region. I don't always get through the whole slideshow, but I do just watch you. I look at you. I remember you. And I love you, and I think about how we are connected in 4 languages, in 2 states, all over the place. And as I see that connection in the morning, and I see your faces, I am more resilient, because I know that it's more than about my family and my household, and even my little piece of the world. And I see in those pictures, I see many of you. A 5th way to be resilient is to develop character, because character helps you be hopeful. When I was at Mallory Avenue Christian Church as a pastor in my first pastorate, some of you have heard this story too many times, but I love it. There was a woman who was 80-something who was named Jean. Well, Jean, I want to be you when I grow up, because she had so much integrity and so much character. And she said, well, you can't be me. You will have to be you. And I said, well, I want to be brave like you and wise like you. And she said, well, then you'll have to practice when you're younger, those things. Because she was telling me you must develop character by living into your character. And that as you become more and more who your best self is, you will understand hope, because you will have seen growth. And almost the last one, control. This is one we love, hate. Things feel somewhat out of control right now. Those big things that we're talking about feel out of control. So one of the things about control is learning what things you do have control over and what things you do not, and know where your power is and where it is not. And we will hear about that later today. We can wear our masks, we can wash our hands, we can care for our neighbors, we can't probably any of us develop the vaccine for COVID-19, but we can all be supportive of people who are living through all of this, and those things we control. Last night, my neighbor across the street sent me a text to say, you don't need to do what I asked you to do for my house, because I'm not going to the beach, because my husband's been exposed to COVID, my kids are sick, and we're waiting for testing. So I can't control that. I cannot control that my neighbors who've been so careful have COVID scare in their house. But what I can control is when I go home, I will leave stuff on their porch that they need. I can control that part of it. We all have control over pieces of a situation, and finding which pieces you can and cannot control helps you to be resilient, to sort that. And finally, coping. Coping is sure of your endurance. Coping is that meme on the internet that says you have already survived all the worst days of your life, because you have. If you're still here, you have survived all the worst days of your life. And so how did you do that? One of the ways to be resilient is to understand the places where you have had hurt and you have been broken, and to remember and fully integrate how you have been able to cope. And I need one last slide here. This, again, is one of my favorite scriptures in the top 5 from Romans. We do not need to be afraid of our suffering or avoiding it all the time. We don't need to wallow in it, but we need to remember that suffering leads to endurance. And when we face our suffering, we become resilient. We endure. Endurance does lead to character. Another piece of what the teachers have taught us, resilience consists of. When we become full of character, that leads us to hope. Because when we can feel our integrity and the integrity of those around us, we can be hopeful, and hope does not disappoint us. We're not alone. We are not alone. We have each other. We have the Holy Spirit binding us together. Some of us have history together. Some of us are new to each other. And all of that is hopeful. And so that is why we gave you this song to live in before this event and during this event, to remind you in a soundscape, because I miss singing. I miss singing with people. And so hear these people sing together.
Technical difficulties, hang on just a sec.
Maybe, Stacy, while you're finding the technical difficulties, I'll have the prayer I was going to have after the song. Or? Yes?
No. Let's pray.
Okay. Loving and gracious God, we thank you for the opportunity to be together today, and we thank you for the ways that you will bless this time and will bless each one of us and bless our congregations and our churches through this blessing. We open ourselves to new information today. We open ourselves to the stories we'll hear, and we thank you for our sisters who've gathered, those who remember each other every day and those who are new to each other. We ask that you would help us each day to be more and more resilient, resting more confidently in your arms and your spirit and in your grace and mercy and forgiveness. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
JC, should we wait or should we?
Here we go.
Thank you, Kathy. That was a beautiful worship service. Our next speaker is Raiza, who will be talking about her experience here in Oregon with the resilience of her congregation. Raiza, would you like to share with us now?
Good morning, sisters. It is absolutely wonderful to be here with you this morning. I wanted to share a little bit about the Minga I have seen in Oregon, that we're not alone, that has shown that. It started with one phone call. One phone call at 10 p.m. at night that sounded more like, hey, I have no idea what's going on. I don't know what to do. I don't know what we should be doing. But I know one thing, that we need to do something. How about you call your people, I call my people, and we'll see what happens. You see, after that one phone call, within 48 hours, we had organized and coordinated 7 different congregations throughout the state of Oregon, so we can deliver some supplies down to Medford. By the end of the week, we had delivered 110 hygiene kits. We had delivered 322 pairs of socks. We had delivered about 800 diapers of all different sizes, and we had collected about $3,000 for the Week of Compassion, and that just exceeded our expectations and our imagination within just 1 week. You see, the collaborative spirit of the Minga, it's that it allows us to come together, and it allows us to offer hope and to offer solidarity and to let our community know that they're not alone. The collaborative spirit of the Minga. After that one phone call, the online group was formed. Eric I formed an online group, and that's when we started with 5 people. Then it grew to 19 people, then 21, then 25 people. You see, people wanted to join and invite other friends to this group because people wanted to be part of the solution. The messages keep pinging on my phone. I remember, ding, hey Raiza, we sent a message to our congregation. Let's see what happens. Ding, hey Raiza, this is Caroline from Week of Compassion. How can we help? Ding, hey, we got 80 hygiene kits ready. And then my absolute favorite, ding, FYI, if you go and buy a lot of those travel size things at Walmart, you're gonna have to talk to the manager. So my prayers went from, dear God, how can I help, to, oh God, let all this fit in the van. Because just like the story of the fish and the baskets of bread, things just multiplied, and God provided for us. The night before the relay, I met at Murray Hills Christian Church with Rick, Bernice, and I. We had received so much donations. We had things from Portland First Christian Church, things from Murray Hills, things from some of our new congregations in Oregon, things from our food pantry. And we just had so much that we didn't just want to send boxes of things. So we wanted to organize it. So we put things in a Ziploc bag, you know, the shampoo, the soap, a little notepad so people can write something or know when to do due diligence. And we tried to send it as organized as possible, because it was more than sending stuff. It was about sending love and that solidarity, and to let them know that we are there caring for them. We loaded the van, and I thought my van was full when ding, my phone with a picture. It was from Alicia from Hood River saying, I hope you have room for all the things coming from Hood River. Oh God, let it all fit in the van tomorrow. The next morning, the relay began. And I met Jeff, which is Alicia's husband, down at Wilsonville. And just like that, things just multiplied and they did fit. And it was more than just stuff. One of the children from Hood River, who they themselves had been displaced by the fires, they had been evacuated. They made fresh homemade cookies, and they had a box of cookies that they sent to a relay with a little note that said, "I hope you're okay," from your neighbors. And just like that, Jeff and I took our first selfie on the phone, and we sent it out to the group so everybody knew that the relay had started. And it's so amazing because after we sent that selfie, ding, we got a message that said, "We are praying for the relay." I cannot tell you how much those prayers mean, and those prayers cannot be underestimated. Just the feeling of knowing that you are covered by that bubble of protection and prayer. It's absolutely amazing. The drive to Salem was pretty somber. It was full of thick smoke, where even inside the car as I'm driving, the smoke was coming in, even though my air was circulating inside. I had to wear my N95 mask because it was so hard to breathe. And as I'm driving down I-5, there is signs from ODOT everywhere redirecting traffic and detours here and there. There's people evacuating. I'm seeing on I-5 going north, which is opposite from where I was going, the trailers full of cows and horses that they were trying to evacuate, and then the vans and the trailers of people that are trying to evacuate their homes. And you had a sense that evacuation, they're leaving with all their belongings right there. And it was uncertain and things were changing fast. But that bubble of prayer was still there. When I went to Salem, it was like a family reunion. Sane was there, Taylor was there, Eric I was there. I'm sure if it wasn't because of COVID, we would have hugs and kisses, and instead of the distance fist bump of "don't touch me," but we still are together, connected. We loaded the van, and there were things that came from Lebanon, from Salem, from Kaiser, from Springfield. Our fish and our bread had just multiplied. And we took a selfie, one more selfie with the group. And my part was done. You see, Salem was the last leg of my trip. Because that's the other beauty of the Minga. The Minga is, the work is bigger than just one person. God continues the work, even when my part is done. Now my prayer was, God, please let the supplies arrive. When the supplies made it to Roseburg, there was a U-Haul truck there waiting, because God provides. The truck wasn't even halfway full with all the things that we had sent out. There was still room for more. The supplies were loaded. They had to spend a night down in Roseburg. And our concern was that I-5, some of it had been blocked, and some areas they were rerouted, and we didn't know if the supplies were going to make it. It was, like I said, a very uncertain time. It was, things were changing so quickly. The next day, ding, a picture from Stacy Shelton with the mask that said hope, and she had received the supplies. She was getting ready to get all the volunteers to deliver those supplies to the people that needed it in the community. We did it. You know, that was not the first the first drive that we did. We did a second run, and the second run was equally special. That second run, there were people that were not even disciples that joined in our relay. I had somebody heard in social media our story. I had a friend that I hadn't seen for 10 years, and she sent me money through PayPal so we can buy more supplies. Our Minga extended outside of our church community. One of our members, Katie, from our church, she also posted on social media her story of what we did with the relay, or what we were planning to do with the relay. And some of her mommy friends and teachers put together children's supplies and school supplies, educationals and teddy bears and things that were needed for the children. We had tents, and we had sleeping bags on that second trip. You have to know that we were able to respond so quick, in part because the knowledge of the past has been passed down. Because of women retreats like this one, where we get together and we already had practiced how to do hygiene kits. We didn't have to tell people what is a hygiene kit. You knew what is a hygiene kit. We had practiced how to do prayer shawls. You knew how to do prayer shawls. All that wisdom that we gathered together and we share with each other, it was already there, so we were able to respond quickly. I feel that our Minga is just beginning. It might look a little bit different. Maybe now we are going to be sending volunteers to go work on the cleanup stages. Maybe the youth trip next year will be to Talent and Mill City, so they can build houses in collaboration and in partnership with Habitat for Humanity. Our Minga will still need prayers of protection. And if you are not able to do the physical work, our Minga is going to still need financial support as well. Today's offering, that we'll talk about it later, it will be split between Ecuador, reconciliation, and the Week of Compassion work. And I have seen how Week of Compassion has been a trustworthy, responsible steward of our resources. Our Minga in Oregon will continue, and the spirit of collaboration will continue, and the work is bigger than just one person, so it will need all of us. The Minga will continue, and God provides. Praise God, from whom all of our blessings flow. God provides. I'm gonna share, hopefully I can share my screen so you can see the pictures. It's very short because I know we're running out of time, but so you can see the pictures of our Minga in Oregon.
Thank you so much, Raiza. Thank you very much. That was a wonderful presentation about wonderful work. I can't hear you. Are you muted? Okay. Okay. Robbie? Miss Robi Ingram Rich, you are up.
Okay, so my charge was to talk about about the anti-racism pro-reconciliation workshop that was held virtually on August 8th, and also about the book groups that are at First Christian Church is doing right now. Just distract you for a moment. Okay, something to look at while I talk. So before COVID, and there was a time before COVID, the First Christian Church Portland decided that it was time for an anti-racism pro-reconciliation training to be held at our church. We have a great multi-purpose room. We have free parking if you come downtown. But COVID happened, and August was definitely going to be within the don't go thing. So some of the things that are positive about doing something online is you can have way more people than you intended or you thought. So there were about 70 some attendees. There were folks from other states, including Georgia and Texas. And for those of you who've done trainings before or were at the training in August, you know that a lot, the focus is what is racism? What does racism mean in our denomination? And pro-reconciliation is for us to break the bounds of racism and grow into the better church, the brighter world that we plan to be. So in our denomination, racism is race prejudice, which is how you interpret, when you see somebody, how you interpret who they are, and the misuse of institutional power. And that includes housing, schools, banks. It's a lot. So now we'll go to the next one. Here we go. So last week, I talked to my best friend from high school, and it was like, what are you doing and what do we remember? And is this time different than the time when we were in high school together? We met, I know, it's hard to believe, 50 years ago when we were sophomores. And she's a Jewish woman who's now a minority group in Scottsdale, Arizona, as a liberal white Jewish woman, surrounded by people who aren't liberal Democrats. And then here I am in Oregon. And we were just saying, is my memory different? Didn't we get along better? Didn't we do this, that, or other better? And I explained what the program was. But then that made me think, where do we go? Then I started talking to about reading, that I was in a book group that was reading, I'm co-leading, as Rice is co-leading the Monday group, I'm in the Tuesday group, How to Be an Anti-Racist by Ingram X. Kendi. Now, How To makes it sound like it's a do-it-yourself book, and it kind of sort of is in a very difficult way. This book, there's a Monday group that's 2 chapters ahead of the rest of us because there's a graduate student in that group, but we are reading 2 chapters per week. We get together on Zoom, of course. We open, we go to small groups, we close together again. Each group has its own personality. The things that I want to say about Dr. Ken, and then the Tuesday group, we may have shared it with the other groups, I don't know, was able to see Human Solutions here in Portland hosted a conversation between Joanne Hardesty, who's one of the city council people here in Portland, with Dr. Kendi on October 1st. And so they had 1,000 spaces. So we were able to go and see this 38-year-old man who's 2 years post stage 4 colon cancer, who wrote the book with chemofog, just to make you all feel like I can, is there someone better than me? Oh yeah, that's impressive to me. So after you read a book and after you've gone to a training, are you done? No, you're not done. You've got to continue. It's not a one-stop shop. It's like, if you finish Sunday school and you've been to church a few times, are you done? No, we have to continue to grow. We have to keep working on it. This is not easy, being anti-racist. So I put this here because First Christian's just across the street from Portland Art Museum. And when we talk about racism, it's not just black, white, it's brown, it's indigenous, it's all kinds of people of color. Once again, what your eyes tell you that you're seeing. So a lot of the Oregon Public Health Association, which I was at their meeting on Monday and Tuesday on Zoom, and a number of other entities around, not just in this state, but around are saying, recognizing that there were people who were here before, that we displaced them or shared measles and cholera and other things with them. And so this is becoming more common to say, there were people here before, we kind of moved them away, they may still be here. Okay. You'll see this posted in buildings in Canada, and it's also in, we're not the only people, and also in Australia. So some of the charges I would say from the do-it-yourself is, one is to be brave. So in my neighborhood, it's not that brave to put up this sign. It's kind of easy. But within the same city, just a couple blocks, less than 2 miles away, someone had a Black Lives Matter sign on their in their house, and a neighbor gave them an anonymous note and said, take that down, it's lowering property values. And then if you're in the Portland area, you know, our mayor, who isn't paid for his job, but wasn't thinking before he opened his mouth, said, oh, that's a one-off thing, that doesn't happen, blah, blah, blah. So you need to be brave and you need to speak up. So here are some other thoughts about racism. It's not how you look, it's how people assign meaning to how you look. So depending on where I am, when I'm in Hawaii, they think I'm Polynesian. When I was in junior high, I was in the Filipino American group club. When I was in high school, I was in the Israeli folk dancing class. So I know I'm kind of ambiguous what I can be, but it's how do people read this? We do not see things as we are. We see them as we are, but we need to work on that, right? So these are the definitions from chapter 1 of the How to Be an Anti-Racist. This is the hard one to be in. So it isn't that you're racist, not racist, or anti-racist. Dr. Kendi says, if you say I'm not a racist, but you don't do anything about it, that's racist. I know, heavy load there. And an anti-racist is talking about being active and using energy and being thoughtful and stepping forward. And then this is from chapter 2. And this is, this is where the power structures of racism exist. So an assimilationist says that if you just, the power structure in this country at this point is being white. And so the assumption is if you try really, really hard to be white, and you deal with your hair and how you talk and what you eat and what, you know, all these kinds, how you dress and all these kind of things, if you just really work really, really hard to be more and more like us, then that's okay because we're good, we're the best, and you want to be like us. And for many people, you can never assimilate because people are going to look at you and make a decision. And for many people, you can't lose who you are just because you want to fit in. Now, a segregationist says, well, we know you can never assimilate, so we'll just put you over here in a ghetto or a neighborhood or a red light district or something like that. And you're over there and you go to another school and we'll tell you it's equal, but it really isn't. But you stay over there and we'll stay over here and you're not going to taint us. And an anti-racist says, you know what? We're all good people. And we all have something to offer and we're the best that we can be. And that's just the way it is. And you're going to accept it. Because we've accepted it. Now that takes a lot of energy being anti-racist, as those people in the class can say. So now we're going to go on a few field trips just so we can, because like I said, you're not done after you've read the book and taken the class, and we don't issue certificates because you're never done. This used to be known as the Museum of Man. It's actually, now it's called the Museum of Us. It's in San Diego. Online, they have a very excellent interactive thing about understanding race, which you'll get in a follow-up email on this. And some of the following slides are from there, and 2 of the previous ones are from there. What is race? All skin colors, whether light or dark, are an adaptation for living in the sun. Racism is the intersection of privilege, place, and race road. Race is a recent human invention. It was a way to keep, it's a power differential kind of thing. The legacy of race continues to shape the lives and relationships of people in the United States and around the world. So it's called the Race Project. It's at the Museum of Us, and you'll get information about how to go and play with things. One of the things that's happened during COVID is we've learned how many field trips we can take for free if we have access to the internet and we know where to go. So I want to talk about these. These are called stumble stones. They're in Germany, and they're throughout Germany. They're in front of houses where people were removed from their homes. Oops, we didn't want to, you don't need to see that yet. From people who were taken away by the Nazis and sent away. And we are not a country that has stumble stones, but I think this is not a bad idea to have a stumble stones that said, this happened here. This happened here. So if you don't look down every now and then, but you remember. So in this one, we can see that Leo was first taken away in 1938, and he went to Dachau and Buchenwald, and that he died in 1942. His wife, Hilda, was born in 1890 something. She was picked up in 1940, and she died in Auschwitz. Their children, this child was taken away when he was 15, and he also died. Heinz Joseph and Robert Hamill was taken away from this house when he was 11 years old, and he also died. So they have stumble stones. I think it's just a concept like, where would we put our stumble stones? Because if we don't remember and if we don't pay attention, it's lost. The other thing about being anti-racist is you have to accept the fact that we're all talking different ways, but we need to make everybody welcome. This is at the BART station in MacArthur's Station for BART, Oakland, California. Where else can you go on a field trip? This one's free. Go to the library during Black History Month. So this year, 150th anniversary of the 15th Amendment, which gave Black men the right to vote following the Civil War, which they had until after Reconstruction ended and they went into Jim Crow, and then suddenly you didn't have access to, you'd have to wait till 1965 to get the right to vote again through the Voting Rights Act. 19th Amendment, 1920, the culmination of the women's suffrage movement. That was most white women, depending on where you lived. This was in the public library. This is from 1966. This is, I just want to point out how sad it is that some things have not changed. They want freedom. They want power. They want full employment. They end the robbery by the white men of our Black community. We want decent housing, fit for shelter of human beings. We want to educate our people that exposes the true nature of this decadent American society. We want this is 1966, an immediate end to police brutality and murder of Black people. We want freedom from people held in jails. We want people, all Black people, who are tried to be in a court of a jury peer or people from their Black communities. Does not happen yet. We want land, bread, housing, education, clothing, justice, and peace. 10-point plan, 1966. There's still a lot of work to be done. And the breakfast programs that are in schools now, those were started by the Black Panthers in the 60s, and the federal government copied them. So this is about Oregon history. So these men here, George Washington Bush, Michael Troutman Simmons, and David Clark Parker, they were in the Gilliam wagon train. As you know, there's a county in Oregon named Gilliam. And they got to the Dalles in 1844, and then George Washington Bush heard that the Oregon Territory says, you can't come here. We have banned Negroes. So they crossed the river and went to Washington. Bush, Prairie, Vancouver, that was started by George Washington Bush. And one of these guys started the town of Centralia in Washington. Oregon is the only state that said, when they were getting ready to become a state, they put in the Constitution that denied the rights to African Americans, Chinese Americans, mixed ancestry. And although the later amendments in the United States Constitution would say that this isn't legal anymore. It took until 1926 for the state to vote it out. These are Black people, Black settlers who were in Oregon, kind of living under the radar because before there was radar, so it was easier then, but they had no rights. Oregon Historic Society, free if you live in Multnomah County, and they have family days. But all of this is on digitalized now, so just go do a field trip. I know it's not the same as walking through the galleries, but we do what we have to do in these times. This woman in 1912, so Oregon gave the vote to women before 1920 for school boards and city councils and stuff. This woman worked on getting the women the right to vote, but she was Black and was denied that vote, but started laying the groundwork for Black civil rights activity. This woman also worked, Black woman also worked on votes in Portland. She was a social worker. I'm really fond of the Oregon Experience video documentaries that OPB puts out, which you can find if you go to opb.org and then start looking for Oregon Experience. Vanport. So Vanport, we often talk about the Vanport flood. Vanport was built by Henry Kaiser, because all these people came to build, all kinds of races came to Portland to build ships. And Vanport had all this housing, integrated schools, round the clock working on shipbuilding. And this is where Kaiser's healthcare program started. From Vanport, there was a flood and swept away. And the white people who lived in Vanport were absorbed by community, but the people of color in Vanport were displaced because they could only live in certain neighborhoods. And some probably went over to, so anyway, you can find that documentary, it's worth watching. Also free. After World War II, Japanese Americans, Oregonians, who had been in a concentration camp, came back and they could not move back into their homes. So they were able to move to Vanport. Flood was in 48. This is, anyway, you have to know your history to know how wide our racism can be. This was from a conference I went to. So these people presenting wanted to say not internment, but call it incarceration and imprisonment, and not to call it evacuation, but forced removal. Okay. This field trip is free. This one's in, well, you have to come to Portland. It's in the Japanese section on the west side of the waterfront, and the haiku says, rounded up in the sweltering yard, unable to endure any longer, standing in line, some collapse. And this one is kind of free, but if you ride max to the end of the line, this, it stops at the Expo Center, and that's where we sent our Japanese American citizens. And these little metal things are the tags. They were citizens, but they were tagged as if they were at, you know, the county fair. And they stayed in the stock yards and stuff before they were transported by train to Minidoka or Manzanar or Tule Lake or wherever. And when the wind blows, they make a really little ding, ding. It's very pretty. And on the posts, there's, you can read what the newspapers had to say about the forced removal of Japanese Americans. So worth the ride to the end of the line. It's very, Expo Center's right through that. Ruth Ozawa was interned. I went to school with her kids. She's an artist who's being honored right now by the US Postal Service. Stamps, new stamps. She died a couple of years ago. Another art trip, I think that we can experience, learn, kind of feel things. So this artist, what this artist did in the 21st century, there were Black churches were torched by arson. And this artist went and picked up the timbers that were left behind one of the churches that were burned in the South. And he arranges them so you can kind of, I guess if you imagine what would a burnt church look like, if this is what it is. This rope here is about 2 feet tall. So this is about a 2-story church. For you quilters, these are G's Bend, Alabama quilts. And sometimes when we go to something, read the walls, because these are collectible African-American quilts. But in 1962, during civil rights, the local sheriff said, we didn't close down the ferry because they were Black. We did it because they forgot they were Black. And in 1965, Martin Luther King visited Gee's Bend, which is in Alabama, and urging people to vote. I came over here to Gee's Bend to tell you you are somebody. So even when you're on your art field trip, there's things to learn. Here's some more quotes. This is a local author, grew up on Alberta neighborhood of Portland, which has been gentrified, so he can't live there anymore. And they have kiosks on Alberta Street that kind of tell the story of what Alberta was before people kind of got forced out. His name is Mitchell S. Jackson. He's dedicated his life so that people, his friends and neighbors, still exist. So he had power in his neighborhood. And it's true that when you cross the country and go to other places, people think that there are no Black people in Oregon. And yet they have families and they move on and grow. But that's not the picture we necessarily have, and that's the power of racism. The other thing I think we need to do is be brave, speak up, give witness, take care of yourself, keep learning. This was a march from 2 years ago about when we were separating families. We're still separating families. And this woman here, remember the stumble stones? She's the granddaughter of someone who survived Auschwitz. Human beings are not illegal. Protest, it's what Jesus would do, and we know that he did throw a couple of fits in a good way. This is just talking about all the foods we think are native, like oranges are from China. This is just a funny thing. I can send to someone later. Apples are actually from Kazakhstan. Peanuts are from Africa. They're all immigrants and they mooch our water and our soil. What have they ever done? Avocados even are from somewhere in Mexico. The other thing that happened with racism, and I know I'm bouncing back and forth, is that where you live determines the length of your life much more than a lot of other things. So these two zip codes are not that far apart. The difference in life is eight years. Wherever we find someone who's different than us or someone who's familiar to us, I think we should pay attention. What does it look like? What does it feel like? I don't have to like it, but maybe I will. Okay, this woman is Marie Watt. She teaches at Portland Community College. She's a Portland-based artist. She's from Seneca, and she makes these sculptures that are blankets because that were used in trade between the trappers and the Europeans and the Canadians, who are Europeans, and the natives. And this guy here was also that's Clarence. Clarence. Sorry. Anyway, go read up on what these are, but these also transported disease and were about displacement. Native Alaskans. These masks, I want you to see where there's similarities between people. These are from Africa. These are from the Pacific Northwest. This is in Bend. This is in DC. I think this is the artist who painted Michelle Obama's portrait. This was in the Portland Art Museum, that we think Black men play basketball and that's what they're known for, but this was about violence against Black men. This piece was about the similarities of being on a football team and picking cotton. Those of you, I see a head nod, so you know what I'm talking about. I think we also need to be open to seeing things in unexpected places. So one of the widest sports you can play is ice hockey. And this was a free exhibit in March our last trip before COVID, to go and visit the exhibit on Black ice hockey players. It's amazing. The other thing, this is in DC, but because of COVID, go to your National Park Service website and you can visit. This is part of the National Park Service. There are quotes around it. This is an amazing, amazing to see. This is as close as I've gotten to the National Museum of African American History and Culture. I was going to go there this summer. I was going to be at a conference in DC. They have a very good, also free through the Smithsonian website, which will take you through a number of things. This has been a Hispanic Heritage Month, and their current exhibit was on the intersection of Black Hispanics. And so they had several exhibits celebrating that. Once again, the internet lets us go on field trips that we otherwise can't afford. So at least I know who I was when I got up this morning, but I think I must have been changed several times since then, said Alice. And I think that's the other thing from going to a training, reading a book, sharing what it means, what it stirs up for you with each other, is to, we have to change and we have to go. And pro-reconciliation is kind of like being proactive. Anti is kind of, and anti is active too, we're learning. So we have change priorities ahead. Isn't that great? To the wrongs that need resistance, to the rights that need assistance, to the future in the distance, give yourselves. Carrie Chapman Catt was involved with the women's suffrage movement. This is one, Raiza, this is the poem, this is the reading I did with your group from Frederick Douglass. If there's no struggle, there is no progress. It's scary out there. Let me just say, once again, you find things in funny places. This Justice Center Community Design said, if we make it harder for you to speed, then you won't get pulled over by cops. If we make it harder for you to, if we make it harder for things to happen, so make this, design the streets so you don't want to speed. And if instead of giving someone a ticket for having a broken taillight, you give them a coupon to fix the taillight. Or if you take away traffic enforcement from police and give it to some other entity and move that entity together with people who design communities, then that will be healthy. So that was from the public thing. And I think I've been cut up.
Sorry, Robbie, we're going way over time.
Sorry.
It's okay. I'm just wondering if we can.
That's enough. That's fine. I can be done.
Thank you, Robbie. Blanca, you're here. You're now.
Finally. Hello, friends from Oregon and Southwest Idaho. I'm so sorry about it. I have some troubles to get into the computer, but finally I am here. As always, I want to say thanks to God, and thanks to you for the opportunity to talk about the COVID-19, the situation here in Ecuador, and especially with the Felice family. But first, I bring a special message from the Felice family here in Ecuador to all of the families affected by the fires in Oregon. We are so sorry about this. I want to say we continue praying for all of you. Talking about COVID-19 in Ecuador, until now, according to the official news in Ecuador, 150,000 people have been infected by the COVID-19, and unfortunately, 10,000 people died. And the same, thanks to God, until now, this number of some members of the Felice family, as much as we know, the majority of them are recuperated. But one person, sadly, one person in Macatapulo died. But yeah, we need to continue with this, and I'm so happy to hear you are working with Minga. Yes, Minga is very special word for us. I am going to show a PowerPoint of videos on how Felice use the resources, how Felice work together with the Minga, with the Felice family. And you know what? You are very important part of this Felice family, of this Minga with us. I would like to share a video with you, PowerPoint with you. As I said, you are part of this Minga with Felice. Thanks to God, we received around $70,000. And thank you, friends in Oregon and Southwest Idaho. You give us almost $7,000. 23 communities, 16 women's group, almost 600 families, almost 300 children. So from the 7 Daycare Center receive help. With your contribution, because you help us, Felice was able to deliver food rations. Also, the elderly people, the children, are the most vulnerable people from the groups working with Felice receive help. I send this special from you to you from the Macatapulo. They say, gracias, Oregon. Les agradecemos de todo corazón. Thanks, Oregon. Thanks, friends from Oregon. They are from Macatapulo. And also from Romerillos. I am talking about these communities because you are familiar with these friends. It was so nice to hear from the people when they deliver the food rations. Your help is a blessing from God. This comes through you, but it's God who is coming with this blessing for all of us. We try to help all the groups that is working with Felice, and yes, New Hope Women Group in Sua Esmeraldas, the people in Pijal, and we were your hands. Thank you again, because you send the money to us. We were able to deliver the food ration to the people, and they said, we were your hands. With a lot of joy, we have delivered the food rations on behalf of Felice family. And as I said, you are a very important part of this Felice family. Also, our brothers, our sisters in Pusir and Carchi. As I said, we deliver almost 300 hygiene kits for the daycare centers, the 7 daycare centers. 2 in La Tacunga, My Little Angels of Victor Baca, Sweet Angels of Lisa Frankie, and 5 in Otavalo. You are familiar with one of them, and in Pijal Centro, in San Pedro, in Caluquí, in Tamia Sisa, in Muyuk Mushu, in Tocagon. We help them. In their smiles, obviously, we are using our masks. Is that one of the measures to avoid the COVID-19, but in their smiles, in these gestures and gratitude, we can feel, actually, I feel the hope, the blessing of God. I used to say thanks to God because just God let me to be an instrument to help the people. They are our energy. They are my energy to continue ahead, to continue working with the people from the communities. And now, I would like to share quickly the voices from the communities, stories of faith, of hope, of work, living resilience. Macatapulo, as I said, they received the food rations and they said, yes, we are currently going through this difficult situation. However, we have faith, we have hope, and we will overcome this. From Hatunquigua community, it's so nice, and I want to share this with you because, you know, in this time, it's not possible for us to go to the communities for the situation with the COVID-19. But by themselves, they have a meeting and they recuperate the interest and they paid for Felice. And they say, yes, with joy, with responsibility, we want to continue working with Felice. We just put everything in God's hands and ask you, please continue helping us. Our commitment is to continue working as we have always done. I'm going to talk about these examples of resilience, how the people continue working with hope, with faith, with work. They are the project in Macatapulo, in Plancha Loma, community. In Plancha Loma, they have a new project. And as I said, it was impossible for us to go to the communities. When I start to talk with them, I said, if you want obviously you want the money for the project, you need to come to Quito. And they came to Quito. You can see, this is the Felice office in Quito. Some of you are visit us in Quito, the Felice office. He is Hugo Pacheco, who is the Felice project coordinator, delivering the money for the people. $11,200 was delivered for the new project with the people in Plancha Loma. With the people, they want to continue working with the project guinea pigs and cattle. Yes, with the guinea pigs. I know guinea pigs is a pet for you. It's a pet for you in US, but it's a project for us here. And I want to talk about this also, Cochabamba community, because they are working with us for almost 10 years ago. They're working with us, and the same, with responsibility, with hope, with war, with faith. They went to the Marcos house in La Tacunga, and they paid the interest. I'm very interested and so nice. I'm so happy and I'm so proud to hear this from the people, from the friends, the women's groups in Cochabamba. From their own resources, they decide to give them each woman inside the group $144 because they don't, in this moment the situation, the economic situation is the problem, and they from their own money they decide to give the money to each woman in the group, and obviously they help with the situation that they are living now. And the last group, they with the responsibility, they pay the interest, is the Tucumbi Cucho community. The same, they decide to visit Marcos' house in La Tacunga and pay. And they said, when the day to pay the interest on this loan arrived, we made an effort to pay the interest, to continue working with FEDICE. We asked to continue helping us, they said, and I want to clarify, all of the groups receive food rations. All of the groups, the daycare centers that we are working with, receive the hygiene kits for the children. And they say, if you are helping us, we need to help FEDICE also. And this is special about Piedad Chancusi. She is the treasurer on Romerillos community. And she was one of the person affected by the COVID. It was so sad for us. I was talking with her, I was calling her, but thanks to God, I said again, now she is okay. Now she said, I feel good. Thank God, I continue working. I continue with the production of onion and raising cows. And I am able to do this because I am receiving helping from FEDICE. Now the economic situation, as I said, is the problem because they have the products, but they don't have the place to sell the products. However, we will continue working, she said, and I will continue fighting to go ahead. Thank you very much for helping them, she said. And this is a special project in Otavalo. This is a Sosergons organization. 13 women and 2 men, they made this group. They used to prepare and deliver lunch for the elderly people and the children. And it was good, they were working very well, but until March 15, when here in Ecuador, the government about the situation of COVID was the sanitary emergency. And it wasn't possible for them to continue working. But I say it again, the people with hope, with faith, with work, continue working. There was the opportunity to deliver the food kits for the children. It was not possible to prepare because it's not possible to be together, the houses and the groups. But it was the possibility to prepare the kits for the children and the adults. And then they called me, we start to talk, and I talked with some of them, and we decide to give a credit of $6,000 for buying the products. And now they are working. They are making together the products, and they are continue delivering the food rations for the people. And Sarita Farinango, who is the administrator of Asocergons, she said, we continue working. We will overcome of this, and thank God we can bring support to our families. It's so nice to talk. I say it again, I am so proud to talk, to hear from my friends, my partners from the communities, to say we are going to overcome of this. Yes, it's a difficult situation. We are not okay, but we have the commitment to continue ahead. And now I am going to show a video about Margarita Fonte. She is the president of a women's group in Pijal. And the same, she was one of the people, one the person of the people affected by the COVID. But she said again, I want to continue working with the products. Please let me know if you hear this.
Por la pandemia que ocasionó, me estaba yendo mal, hasta estaba cerrando locales que se estaban empezando y hasta ya perdí clientelas. Entonces, incluso de eso yo estaba un poco pasando esa pandemia. Entonces busqué un crédito a la feliz. Entonces me dieron un crédito, estoy empezando de nuevo a comprar más productos. Tengo muchos más productos. Tengo tomate, zanahoria, pimiento, naranjilla, tengo mandarina, tengo naranja, tengo piña. Ya tengo acá mis frutitas, ramas, verde, maduro. Compañeros, mi emprendimiento era de jornada más. Empecé con eso desde que tenía los 10 años. Entonces, con eso estaban bordando hasta que aprendí a hacer las camisas para confeccionar para mí misma. Entonces, estaba pensando algún día. Entonces, me fui creando y hice unas camisas. Luego sabía también tejer. Empecé a seguirlo con pequeñas cosas que estaba tejiendo, con unos tapetitos, con unos cartines de bebé. Aprendí muchas cosas, por ejemplo, gorras. Aprendí a hacer los sombreritos. Aprendí a hacer sacos, ponchos, chalecos y otras cosas más. Entonces, para el tiempo, estaba poniendo un cosito, empecé a comprar más materiales con un poco que tenía. Ya cosas más, especialmente ya para venderles. Entonces estaba empezando yo con un pequeño localcito, con las rutinas que tenía, estaba ya empezando a vender. Entonces en eso vino la pandemia y no pude hacer nada. Entonces yo aún así estaba adentro, trabajando de hacer cosas de manualidades, tejidos, bordados a mano, bordado a máquina, pintado, las bisuterías, muchas cosas más. Entonces pasaba haciendo eso, así, pero necesitaba un poco de dinero para poder de nuevo empezar. Entonces yo busqué, gracias a la feliz me abrieron las puertas. Entonces con el crédito que me dieron estoy empezando de nuevo con las cosas que yo tenía, con poco que yo tenía. Pensaba en eso antes, gracias a la gente que me dieron un crédito, montando un poco más grande y hasta incluso hoy yo trabajaba con la máquina doméstica, es una máquina pequeña. Yo trabajaba. Entonces, esto con el pasar del tiempo ya me avanza a realizar cosas más grandes. Entonces, con el crédito que hoy me dieron, compré ya las máquinas industriales, las máquinas para confeccionar, por ejemplo, confeccionamos blusas de mujeres, bordamos las blusas de mujeres, calentadoras, todo tipo de ropa. Estoy empezando a confeccionar las mascarillas. Gracias, compañeros, a la Fundación Felice.
Thank you. As I say again, thank you. Thank you for your attention. We know we are in a difficult time now, but as you can hear and as you can see from the people, from the communities working with Felice, with hope, with faith, with work, we are going to overcoming of this situation. We are continue with our activities. I say it again, it's not easy, but our commitment with the God blessing is to overcoming of this situation. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Blanca. We are so happy to have you here with us today. This is wonderful. Okay, Stacy is going to break us up into small groups. And our discussion question, today you've heard 3 stories about how our regional church has sought to be resilient in 2020. And you've seen a list of 7 ways to be resilient. What have been some of your own challenges this year, and how have you personally found resistance and hope during this year? So as I said, all our group leaders have a copy of that question, should have. Stacy's going to break us up into groups now, and each group has its own leader.
And you need to say yes to the invitation to go to your group, because I haven't been able to figure out how to get you there if you say no. So receive a positive to that invitation.